What's up, travelers? It's Eliz from Means to Travel, and today I'm standing here with my friend Brian, who's a Phoenix-based photographer, and we are here in Picacho Peak State Park in Arizona to share with you guys 12 surprises about Arizona. We're going to share with you some of the misconceptions that you might have about this state, and then go into what it is that might be surprising to find out about Arizona. So let's get into it. So the first misconception that you might have is that Arizona is just kind of a desert, cactus, sand place, kind of like what we're seeing back behind us here. But why is that incorrect?
You know, it was my misconception when I moved out here first, is I was like, wow, this is going to be nothing but a hot and dry desert, and boy was I wrong. And the last 12, 13 years, whatever it's been, I've lived out here, I realized you can see forest, tundra, you can see grasslands, you can see practically every kind of microclimate you can think of in this state, which is pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
And even more exciting is, like, just from this spot right here, 2 hours in that direction we're in forest, 2 hours in that direction we're in grasslands. It's crazy.
And 1 hour that way is Phoenix, and 1 hour that way is Tucson, which are the two biggest cities in the state as well. And all of those have their own really cool areas to explore too. I also really like northern Arizona, and so,
Yeah,
of course, the Grand Canyon, but there's the petrified forest, which doesn't even really have vegetation, right?
The name is kind of misleading, but it's still really cool to see, because like northern Arizona is like a completely different desert if you're up in the high desert.
Yeah, Arizona is just a really large state in general, so you could do anything that you want. There's lakes here even. There's
Right.
Roosevelt Lake that you could go boating on.
There's lakes, and one of the popular things to do in Phoenix is to float down the Salt River. You can get a canoe, or you can get like a blow-up inflatable raft and just float down, and you float from canyons down into the desert. And of course, it's a good way to cool off. But yeah,
Especially, I'm sure, in the summertime.
Right.
I haven't done that yet. I'm going to add to my to-do list.
it's a must too. It's a lot of fun. It can be a little bit of a party scene, but it's
Fair.
it's still fun, even if you don't want to participate in that.
Another misconception that you might have if you're planning a trip to Arizona is that it's going to be very hot because this is a desert. Is that true?
No, there are definitely hot parts of the state certain times a year, but it's not always hot. In fact, even in the summer, there's parts of the state that are actually really mild. And that's
Based
where,
on the elevation, kind of.
yeah,
right?
the elevation can make a huge difference. So the higher elevation, you're gonna have a more mild summer, but much colder winter. And then the lower elevation is kind of where we're at, a much hotter summer, but more mild winter. So you can find all kinds of temperatures in this state all year round. In fact, I think the hottest temperature ever recorded in the state was 128, and the coldest was -40. So.
And that's in Fahrenheit, but 128 Fahrenheit, I mean, that's pretty hot Celsius. I'll put a conversion below. But honestly, I think -40 Fahrenheit is roughly -40 Celsius.
Yeah,
I think that's roughly where they converge.
I think so.
It's cold.
It's very cold. You almost have to like pack for, like, if you go anywhere in the state, pack for multiple climates.
Yeah, and especially if you're coming in the winter, even the places that are typically warmer might get a cool front. Pay attention to the weather when you're coming here. Pay attention to the elevation of where you're at. And it's not based on like north and south always, where the northern part of the state is cooler and the southern part is warmer. Honestly, Phoenix is traditionally slightly warmer than Tucson, and that's because of the elevation that the cities are at, not because, Phoenix is north of Tucson. So you would think that Tucson would be warmer, but it's not.
No. And as you say, as you go further south, some of the more mild parts of southern Arizona is like right along the border,
Yeah.
where the grasslands are out. I've been there in the summer, and it could be in the 80s or even high 70s in the afternoon.
Yeah, I love going to that Sonoyta area. Again, slightly higher elevation than even Tucson is at, and it's completely different vegetation even. So you can see that change. You can see the climate shift when you drive up the mountain on Mount Lemmon. It goes from cacti to evergreen forests, and that really reflects in the temperatures that you see too.
Yeah.
The next misconception that you might have when you are looking to travel to Arizona is it always a dry heat? That's what I always hear people say, especially where I'm from in Chicago. You're from the Midwest.
Dry heat, right?
Yeah. Is it?
It is at the beginning of the summer. If you're in Phoenix, it's definitely going to be a dry heat. But as the monsoon starts to come in, more moisture comes into the state, and you're going to feel a lot more humidity, especially in like Tucson, places a little bit further south, up in Flagstaff. In fact, the humidity can be noticeable enough to where it's comparable to what you would see in the South. I was in Hilton Head Island this past summer, and I just did a comparison. I was like, wow, there's really not much different on that particular day.
And that was in the summertime,
It was in
right?
the summer, so it can be very humid in the summer, whereas in the other parts of the year it can be pretty dry. So it's enough for my wife and I to get a dehumidifier for our house. So
A dehumidifier in Arizona, I love it.
emptied it 3 times a day.
Yeah, but in the winter time, it can be quite dry, especially in the cities like Phoenix and Tucson. So maybe you might need a humidifier at that point.
Yep.
So definitely look to see what the humidity index looks like when you are planning your travel here. And perhaps you need to pack a lot of lotion and moisturizer, or perhaps you just need to pack like a sweat cloth. I don't know.
It could be different in the state. You could be in Phoenix and it's a dry heat, and then
Yeah.
you come down here and you hit the moisture and it's humid. So, just kind of expect the unexpected and be, like you said, prepared for either, and it'll work.
That kind of brings us into the next point that we're going to be talking about is how much it rains here. So another misconception that I feel like a lot of people have is that it never rains in Arizona, specifically because a lot of the state is desert. But I don't know, is that true?
No, we do get our monsoon. That's from June 15th to September 30th.
And he photographs the monsoon storms, and it is so cool. You do such a great
Thank
job
you.
with tracking the storms and photographing the rain in such a striking and amazing way.
It's, when we get our rain in the monsoon, that's not always when we get our rain, but that's kind of a more picturesque way of seeing it. But
Yeah.
on the other hand, it can be quite dangerous. The Phoenix will average, I think, around 3 inches or so a year, whereas Tucson will have several more inches. And then if you go further south, they'll get 20 or 30 inches of rain in a year,
Right.
down there. So it's crazy. But what's different about our monsoon that kind of you would want to be prepared for is that a storm can just pop out of nowhere. And it can dump like an inch or two of rain in just a short period of time, causing flash flooding. So if you see streams of water, don't drive through them.
What time of year is the monsoon very typical?
So the official date's June 15th through September 30th, but you typically don't see storms, especially in like Phoenix and Tucson, until around the 4th of July,
Yeah.
give or take a few days. You'll know it because one day it'll be dry, and then all of a sudden you'll just wake up and there's humidity.
Totally.
And so the official back in the day was when the dew point would reach 55 degrees 3 days in a row, they would say the monsoon has started. But
Oh, really?
yeah, but they don't do that anymore. And so
Interesting. Yeah, and so you'll also see if you're traveling and looking to book travel to Arizona, in the towns where the monsoons happen the heaviest, such as Phoenix and Tucson, all of a sudden the hotel prices kind of get much more affordable because so few people want to be coming during those spontaneous rainstorms.
yeah, it's the heat and I think the rain kind of drive away a lot of the people that would come otherwise.
Yeah. By the way, if you're watching this video and you are liking it so far, make sure to give it a thumbs up and press that red subscribe button below too so you don't miss any of the travel videos with travel tips that I have on this channel. Next misconception that we're going to be talking about is that there aren't any seasons in Arizona, right? It's always hot.
Yeah,
No?
the joke is it's hot, insanely hot, back to hot, and then a brief mild season in Phoenix. But no, we definitely have seasons in this state. It's
Yeah.
very noticeable if you look.
One of the things that I always like to see is the trees, the cottonwood trees in Sabino Canyon and Tucson changing colors. It actually happens around Christmas time. So that's funny. I mean, that's December, but I'm used to the leaves changing more in like October timing where I'm
Right.
from in the Midwest.
Yeah, fall actually starts really early in Arizona. Like
Yeah.
if you go up to northern Arizona, leaves will start changing in September. My house on my street, the leaves were really late changing. It wasn't until January this year before my tree was actually red.
January?
January. Usually they're off by then, but this year everything was late. And then all of a
And
sudden,
it's February 1st today, so are the leaves back on now? Is
they're
it spring?
actually starting to bud. And they might bud, and then if we get like a freeze, they'll go away. But we do have seasons. You can see snow, you can see fall colors, obviously summer, spring, especially spring, depending on how much rain we get in the fall. Where we're at right now can be absolutely breathtaking. I've been here where the whole ground is just covered in Mexican poppies and all different types of colors of wildflowers.
Yeah, the wildflowers is what this specific state park is known for in the springtime. My family always tries to get up here during the wildflower blooms. And just this past year, I think there was a huge bloom, right?
Either this last year or the year before, we had like 2 years in a row where it was just insane. Like, I've
Wow.
never seen so many. It all depends, to my understanding, how much rain we get in the fall.
Okay.
I guess kind of sets the stage for the kind of the wildflower season we'll see.
Yeah, so you definitely see a wide spectrum of seasons when you are here in Arizona. The next misconception that you might have about your visit to Arizona is there's maybe not a lot to do other than go to the Grand Canyon, but that is absolutely not true, and we are both very passionate about that. I'll let you kind of dive into this.
You know, it's interesting how I've been here a little over a decade, and places like Horseshoe Bend went from just being a place that you could barely find, and now it's
Yeah.
just exploded in growth. Sedona's the same way.
They're much more internationally known.
They
now,
are.
I feel too.
Yeah, I think the state has spent some tourism dollars trying to market to foreign countries. We've seen an increase before the pandemic in international airlines wanting to come in here,
Yeah.
or into Phoenix at least. But yeah, it's huge.
It's very cool to see how much interest people have now in coming to Arizona, but it's definitely made a lot of the state parks, national parks, and just recreational areas way more crowded.
Yeah, back to Horseshoe Bend. I think the last time I was there was maybe 5 years ago. And it was interesting to see that time how the parking lot had grown from the previous time. And to my understanding now there's fees involved to go see it.
Yes.
There's railings.
I went under a year ago and they built a brand new parking lot.
Yes.
You have to pay $10 to get in. And the entire viewing platform used to be, you just kind of scramble on the rocks and then look at it. Now, oh my goodness, there's railings. There's people queuing up even at sunrise. It is a sight to see now, a destination.
It's definitely worth seeing. One thing I will say is, one thing I have noticed with the increase of tourism is a lot of people are defacing rocks and writing their names on stuff. Don't do that. Not only can you get fined for doing that, it's not cool. And a lot of people in Arizona are very passionate about their outdoor areas to explore.
Yeah.
So don't deface it, just share it with everybody else and have a good time.
The next misconception that you might have about Arizona is that the food scene isn't very strong. And frankly, that is just not the case.
Yeah, the food scene is absolutely insane here. I mean, when I came out here, I was expecting a lot of good like Mexican food and, you know, kind of that southwestern flair, but you can find all kinds of food here.
Yeah, I mean, the Mexican food is phenomenal, but
Yes.
there's so much else. I mean, I just ate at a Peruvian restaurant the other day.
One of the cool things that I love, especially in Phoenix, is people import their food. You know, there's a lot of people that are not from Phoenix, so they bring their food. They might bring their restaurants from all over the country. So if you want New York pizza, you can get New York pizza with water imported from New York.
Oh my God.
There's like chain restaurants like Portillo's hot dogs.
I'm from Chicago. Portillo's is like a Chicago staple. That's so neat that it came here.
I even remember I was reading, I don't remember what magazine, but one of them said that Phoenix was the pizza mecca or capital of the country because you can get Chicago style, New York style, Italian, where there's a place I go in Phoenix. The guy's from Naples, like the birth of pizza,
Oh, no
a
way.
chef. So, I mean, you can get it all, not just Mexican food. You can get anything you can think of.
And when it does come to the Mexican food, at least in Tucson, which is what I'm more familiar with, a lot of the Mexican food is Sonoran style. And
Yes.
it's so famous to go to places like El Charro Cafe in downtown Tucson, which has been there for like, I want to say 80 years now or something. I'll put it down below. But it's definitely been an established restaurant and a destination. When you are visiting Tucson, it's been deemed a UNESCO City of Gastronomy. And there has been agriculture and food being grown in the Tucson Valley for thousands of years. And as a result, the food scene in Tucson is blossoming every single year more and more, and you can get food from all over the world just like in Phoenix.
Right.
So many great choices.
I love food, so like you said, you can get Sonoran Mexican food, but even in Phoenix, you can, if you don't want Sonoran, you can get a New Mexican flavor. If you want the New
Yeah.
Mexican style, you can get Baja. You can get all different provinces of or states, whatever they call them down in Mexico.
Yeah.
And it's great. I didn't realize there was different flavors until I moved here. So,
Right, because where we're from in the Midwest, it's always the same kind of Mexican food, I feel.
it's very different, yeah.
There's also just a few more things to add. Try the Sonoran hot dog. That's definitely a must-do that you can find in Tucson, and I bet you can find it in Phoenix too. Yeah, go to E.G.'s in Tucson. That's kind of a local chain restaurant that specializes in sandwiches and stuff. It's kind of their version of Subway, if I had to give a comparison. And are there any chains in Phoenix that you would recommend that are kind of Phoenix-based?
What I would probably recommend more is like one of my favorite places to go into the Phoenix area is a suburb called Gilbert. And they've remodeled their downtown, and there's tons of like local restaurants right there. You can get barbecue that has kind of a Southwest flavor to it, there's tacos, to, you know, breakfast, you name it. So it's awesome.
Yes, so Gilbert, okay.
Downtown Gilbert is a really cool place to go to.
All right, we're getting into some more fun misconceptions now. And the next one, I'm wearing a denim kind of cowboy jacket today, but maybe you might have a misconception that everybody owns cowboy hats and cowboy boots, and we're the only ones standing in Arizona that are not wearing them today. Is that true?
You know, I don't even own a cowboy hat, and I don't have boots. So there's a lot of people that do, but I'd say the majority, especially in the cities, don't.
Yeah.
You know, we're all transplants, at least most of us are.
My family's been living in Tucson for, I mean, I want to say 35 years now, longer than I've been alive. And they do, none of them, I don't think any of them own cowboy hats or cowboy boots, and have never really needed them.
Yeah. I mean, unless you live, like where I live, it's kind of more of a farming community, so you'll see it more. But, you know, there's a lot of places you're not going to see it. You know, it's not the Old West. And if you do see a lot of it, it might be kind of the touristy spots like Tombstone or places like that.
Yeah, I did go down to Yuma, Arizona last year, and again, it's like much more farming community and stuff, and I did see that a lot more there. If you go for perhaps a trail ride that you are organizing through your resort in Phoenix or Tucson or something, yeah, you'll probably see it there. But, you know, it's definitely a very cosmopolitan area in a lot of the major towns and cities in Arizona, and you're going to see a wide variety of clothes. It's not going to be just that old Western look that you might be associating it with.
Definitely, like you said, if you go for horseback riding, you'll probably see it. But other than that, you don't see it a ton.
And kind of on the same vein of talking about how not everybody wears cowboy hats and cowboy boots, you might be thinking everybody wears turquoise jewelry. There's this one episode of Gilmore Girls I remember from, I want to say it was 20 years ago now, where they're like, oh, Tucson, all that turquoise.
And you're right about the fashion, ponchos and all that turquoise. Oh, spare me.
That is so not the case. Yes, the actual gem mineral of turquoise is from Arizona and can be mined here, but you will see a wide variety of jewelry types, what people wear, and it's certainly not an everyday type jewelry that you're going to see. With that, though, you might be visiting perhaps the Navajo Nation in northern Arizona or something like that, and a lot of trading post stops are going to have Navajo jewelry, even Hopi jewelry. Just there's lots of tribal jewelry that is so well crafted, made so beautifully, silver craft, and a lot can incorporate turquoise, and the turquoise that you're going to experience is likely going to be very expensive, and that's because it is very high quality, locally made, locally sourced materials. So certainly look into that if you are visiting that area of Arizona, and maybe even jewelry stores that have those things within other parts of the state too. And then also, I'm here right now in early February, and I am actually here for the Tucson Gem Show, which is the largest jewelry show and mineral show in the world. And a lot of jewelry makers, a lot of jewelry makers come and source the vast majority of their raw materials and beads and clasps, chains, everything from this show each year. And you're going to see really wide variety, like literally can find any type of jewelry. Trust me, it's not just turquoise. The next misconception that you might have if you're from out of town is that the big universities in Arizona are just party schools. And while they might have a party school reputation, which I acknowledge, they are not. A lot of the programs at these universities are very strong. Some are specifically extremely strong, such as like the astronomy program at University of Arizona, for example.
And then when they get the biosphere,
Yes, yeah. So the science
huge.
is huge at University of Arizona. The business school there too. Business school at ASU is great as well. So you're definitely going to see a lot of really great programs, really great research come out of this state.
The universities, both of them are top notch. I mean, there's big rivals between the two from an athletic point of view, but
There was a basketball game literally just this past weekend.
oh, was there?
Yeah.
But there's all kinds of really good programs at either of them. In fact, even if you don't even go to one, I went to a community college, and you said astronomy. I took an astronomy class and got a professor from the U of A, and I learned so much about space. It was incredible. So there is some really smart people in this state.
There are. And just walking around the campuses too can be kind of a fun day trip where you get to go see the activity and like the energy behind the research and the programs.
Yeah, it's different. Up in ASU, I know a lot of people that have gotten meteorology degrees, and I've connected with them or even teach at their meteorology program. So it's not just degrees you would think would be Arizona specific. It's all kinds of stuff. Medical, journalism is huge at ASU.
Yeah.
You name it.
If any of you guys watching went to either of those universities and want to talk more about it in the comments, certainly feel free. We want to learn what other programs there are that you think need to be raved about. The next thing that you might be thinking is Arizona has a pretty recent history when it comes to U.S. statehood, but in actuality, the history that is present in this state goes back thousands of years in human history. There's definitely a lot of Native American protected areas, ruins that you can see. And I mean, you were just saying even like within the area that you live, of some tribal.
Yeah, there's two tribes around my house, the Gila River tribe and the Ak-Chin. And the Ak-Chin, actually, they both do a lot of farming. They farmed hundreds and thousands of years ago, and they still do it to this day. In fact, supply crops that you might be eating. I know a lot of Arizona produce gets exported out of the state too.
There's also, like I was saying before, Tucson is a UNESCO city of gastronomy because of all of the agriculture that's been present here in the state for so long. You're going to really see a lot of preservation efforts about Arizona's history when you travel all over the state, which is really, really special. On top of that, there's some Spanish colonial history within Arizona that the Spanish missionaries came in the 1600s, built a series of missions all across from Arizona and California and everything like that. And one of the places that I truly love to go to is the San Javier del Bac mission, just south of Tucson. It's about maybe 15 minutes from downtown. And it's really cool to go see that history. There's been centuries of activity within that exact spot. So go check it out too.
Yeah, it's like you can find all kinds of old ruins. And if you talk about history, I mean, Meteor Crater, that happened a long time ago.
True.
A long time ago. The Grand Canyon was carved, long before we were even existed. But it's crazy how, there's so much history. When I think of history and traveling, I think of places like Europe or Asia, that have, thousands of years of history. In reality,
there's so much human history within this state.
Absolutely.
As well as you can go back to the Meteor Crater. You can go probably back to the dinosaurs.
Right.
No matter what kind of history you like, lots to learn about. The final point that we're going to share today is that when you are going to go visit Winslow, Arizona, that you perhaps heard about from that classic Eagle song, Take It Easy, that you would be standing on a corner and perhaps looking at small town Arizona and what the sights are to see there. But honestly, that song made that town so popular that it's just essentially that you're going to go and see a tourist destination. It's not small town Arizona anymore in the sense of what you might see in other small towns here.
Yeah, it definitely is just a little touristy spot. They put the red. It's a red truck, right? Yeah, you're trying to remember the song.
Is it flatbed Ford?
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
I think it might be red. I'll put a picture. I have a picture.
But you definitely see that. They have a gift shop across the way that's playing Eagles music all day long. But it's very touristy. You can even climb
up into their fake flatbed Ford that a girl's, like a fake person is driving, there's like a mannequin, and take a picture in it, which I've done. You can go stand on the official corner.
Yeah, they got a beautiful mural there, and I think they got the road painted with Route 66. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's touristy, but it's definitely worth a photo stop if you're stopping along the way to the Grand Canyon or something.
Yeah, it's like stretch your legs, go check it out, but it's not going to be showing you a little glimpse of small town Arizona.
No.
All right, well, I hope you guys really liked all of these misconceptions and how we've debunked them today. If you have any more misconceptions that we've forgotten, feel free to add them to the comments down below. We always like hearing your additions as well and learning from this community here on the channel. Thank you so much, Brian.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for joining us today. Why don't you share exactly where everybody can find you if they want to see, first of all, some of your amazing Arizona photography and other things that you work on as well.
Absolutely. So my website is briansnyder.com. That's Brian with a Y, Snyder with an I. And my Instagram page is just at Brian Snyder. So pretty easy to find. And that's where I put most of my work.
So I'll put links to his pages down in the description too. So absolutely go check them out because he is a very talented person in my personal opinion.
Thank you.
Again, thank you so much for joining today. If you guys liked this video, please press that thumbs up button down below. And also please press that red subscribe button down below too if you haven't already, so that way you don't miss any of the travel videos, Arizona videos, and other travel tips and vlogs on this channel. Thanks so much for watching. Cheers. Happy travels. Bye.
Bye.
Arizona maybe doesn't have as tight. Blah, 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 blah. We're about to get hit by a tornado.
Which can happen in this state.
Yep.
I think the hottest temperature ever recorded in this state is behind the afterburner of that jet.
We're trying to film here, guys. Stop your military practice.
Right.
Hey travelers, don't forget to subscribe and let's hang out more. Here are some links to other helpful travel videos on my channel and press that notification bell so you don't miss any new and awesome travel videos to come.